You and Daniel Alfredson in the press box, and just pure relief. I don't know. How would you describe your feeling last night when you clinched?
Relief is definitely a word. You've been so close for a few weeks, and obviously the team goes on the worst stretch of the year, and you know it's close, and you know you need a few more wins to clinch, and clinching it in a way where we'd struggle a bit in the shootout in the last few games was even, I think, the cherry on top of the sundae.
We were talking earlier just about, for a lot of teams, Pierre, like you guys, let's face it, having more timely saves is huge one year compared to another. But what else was different this year?
I think the players really bought in this year. I think right from training camp, it was a totally different system that they were used to playing. A lot of guys are going to make personal sacrifices for team gains, including our best player. And I know I'll never win this argument, but I don't think any player is more valuable to their team than Erik Karlsson is to our team. To me, he's the most dynamic player in the league, and it started from him. And he knew he was probably going to get less points, and he's not that far off from where he was last year. I think he's only about 10 below where he was last year, and everyone seemed to follow suit.
And we saw last night, I know that, listen, Thomas Chabot just won Defenseman of the Year in the QMJHL, wonderful junior championship as well. He's going to be probably a 10-year pro with the Ottawa Senators. But I'm watching Ben Harper last night, and I'm saying to myself, there's 22 minutes of a guy, you guys drafted, Pierre, I want to say in the 7th round from the Guelph Storm.
Fourth.
Was it 4th round?
Fourth or fifth, I forget.
Okay, so higher than I thought.
Yes.
And, at times, he had a stint in the ECHL when he wasn't getting a lot of ice time, a lot of veterans in Binghamton, and went down there, worked on his game, got a taste before, and then comes up with all the injuries on the blue line. And it seems to me as if he's playing with more of a, and I never even saw this in junior, with more anger in his game. Like he's got more of a bite in his game than we've ever seen before out of Ben Harper. And I look at the game sheet, 22 minutes last night Boucher has him out there.
I think that's a great point. Coming from a scouting background, I've always thought what players are in junior a lot of times is what they'll be in the NHL. I'm not going to be delicate here. Ben was not the hardest player when we drafted him.
Yeah.
And he's changed. I remember I went to Binghamton a week ago to see Colin White in his first game. And Ben had 2 fights that game. He was challenged. He stood right up. And the way he's developed, I give a lot of credit to our scouting staff, our development people, and our coaches in Binghamton. Because he's become such a harder player. He's become a poised player. And probably the nicest compliment I think Ben could ever get. Erik Karlsson doesn't hand out too many compliments. When he sat on the bench for the last 10 minutes of the third period against Detroit, after the game I go see Erik, how you doing? He goes, they didn't need me. They had guys like Ben Harper out there. Now, this is a second-year pro who played in the East Coast League last year.
Yep.
So he's definitely made some huge progress to his game. And, he played those key minutes in, even though it's a 2-goal lead, a quick goal can change everything. So a lot of credit has to go to Ben for him becoming a way more complete defenseman.
Chatting with playoff-bound Ottawa Senator General Manager Pierre Dorion on Hockey Central at noon with Darren Millard, Gord Stellick, and Jeff Marika. So with Ben Harper conversation in play, what do you think your defense looks like on Wednesday, if Wednesday is the day that you open? Although, when are the Dixie Chicks there?
The Dixie Chicks are here Friday.
Oh, okay.
But I think they got to set up Thursday. So maybe they're...
So you'll be opening Wednesday. What does your defense look like?
Method Karlsson, Phaneuf Ceci, Boro Weinman.
That's going to make a lot of fans smile right now.
It makes the GM smile.
Well, one step further, you're talking about healthy D. Quite a night the other night when you had Zach Priestley in the pregame warm-up, Brian Bickle, and, of course, Clark MacArthur all in the same night. And I'm curious how that went, the feedback, and what the expectation may or may not be.
With Clark, first of all, I think we do this for a living. It's about wins and losses, but I think this was a gain of more human side. Clark worked so hard for 2 years to come back. He wanted to come back. He never quit. obviously we needed clearance from multiple doctors for him to ever play a hockey game. But I think at the same time, I wouldn't say Clark had his greatest game the first game. He was much better yesterday. But the emotional lift it gave our room. He's so popular in that dressing room that the guys knew how hard he worked for the last 2 years to come back. And to put him in, people say in a playoff race, I think was the perfect test. And I know some people question our judgment, but we would never do anything without clearance from the doctors. And at the same time, we just felt he might not be the Clark that we know from 2 years ago right now, but he'll be the Clark that we need in that room and for an emotional gain for us.
What was that? Because I'll be honest with you, Pierre, watching that first game, every time Clark MacArthur was near the puck, I was terrified. And I think a lot of people were as well. What was that conversation like with Clark MacArthur when he got the clearance and he wanted to come back to play?
Well, when I always said when the doctor said he was fine to play, he would be back. Obviously, there's a human side to it. When you know his wife, when you've met both his kids, you think about what one hit could maybe do something. But at the same time, all your other players are susceptible to injury. And the conversation went well. It was something that he wanted to do. He did a great job as far as this is where you're going to play, Clark. You're not going back on the first two lines right away where you started. But last night he took some shifts with Turris and Stone. So it was more about, Clark, you've worked so hard. We have to reward you for all your work. And we couldn't put him in a playoff game. And to me, he took some hits from Chris Neal in practice when no one was around. That I was led were hard hits. So and there were no symptoms. He hasn't had a symptom for I don't know how many months. And we all thought he was going to come back in January. And it was almost as heartbreaking as for this whole organization as for Clark that he wasn't going to play. But we did everything by the book through the NHL protocol. He took some hits in practice. So for all those reasons, we felt it was the right thing to do to have him play.
What's his status then for next week?
Oh, that's up to the coach.
So he now becomes a coach's decision. It has nothing to do with the concussion or lack of playing time or anything like that?
No, because I'm pretty sure he'll play both games on the weekend. And at that point in time, he'll have played for a week, and he'll get back into game shape because as much as we can practice, there's nothing like playing in an actual game. At that point in time, it'll be up to the coach. If we played him in in 2 games that we needed to win to make the playoffs, well, he could definitely play in the playoffs. But that'll be up to the coach. We have enough bodies now that it can be a very healthy competition, and if someone's not up to par, well, they can just be easily replaced in the lineup.
Pierre, you mentioned the coach. Talk about the imprint Guy Boucher's made taking over as the head coach.
Oh, Guy's been tremendous. Guy has brought structure to this team. He's brought a way to communicate with the players. He is demanding. We're not going to fool ourselves. He's a very demanding coach. He can be very intense at times, but he knows how to talk to players. He knows how to listen to players, which is as important as talking to them. And I'll probably get in trouble for this statement, but I thought I was the craziest Frenchman in this organization. He definitely is.
Well, you know what? I was getting heat for calling the producer an idiot. So thanks for taking the pressure off me.
Yeah, that's good.
So what makes it work then? If he's that intense, that crazy, but still gets the results.
Well, first of all, he's a great X's and O's guy. I think in this day and age, a lot of players are more advanced in systems than they probably were 10, 20 years ago. Also, he's a great communicator. I know I'm going to repeat what I said a few minutes ago. He talks a lot, but he listens a lot too. And I think the ability to listen is a very important thing for a coach in the NHL these days. He can adapt. Just a perfect example of that is that after the Detroit game, the first game in Detroit, he changed how we were going to forecheck. And Detroit didn't touch the puck as much as I think we were outshot 16-8, and I think they managed only 9 more shots the rest of the game or something like that. If I'm off on the number, I don't want to mislead you. But he's able to adapt. He knows how to use his people. He's got a great feel for the bench. He brought in what we and myself felt was important as far as improving our defensive structure. So he's done a lot of great things here. He deserves a lot of the credit for what's happened here. I think the players deserve the most credit because the game's about them. But Guy's done a tremendous job here.
As you all know, Pierre, whenever a new coach comes in, there are certain players who always get a lift. whether it's because they just like that coach specifically, the philosophies mesh, for whatever reason. Who is that guy, or who were those guys for the Senators this year that got that lift because of the new coach?
You're going to probably find my answer a bit different. Erik Karlsson. Erik's had his best season for us. It's not even. I've been with the team. I was the head scout when we drafted him. He's had his best season. If you look at who's had the best season for the Ottawa Senators this year, in his time with the Ottawa Senators, I would have to say Erik Karlsson. I think Guy made him understand, you've been the best offensive defenseman in the league now for numerous years. Why don't you become the best defenseman in the league? And that's exactly what Erik's done. Leads the league in blocking shots. Is a very good penalty killer. He just controls the game. And he controls it now not just offensively, but he can control it defensively. So I think Erik has got the biggest boost from Guy coming in here this year.
That's incredible praise. Will he play at all this weekend, or are you going to shut him down?
I don't think he's going to play Saturday. We'll see about Sunday. But I know when the puck drops, game one, whenever that might be, he will be in our lineup.
It's always great to have somebody just a little bit off from you around. So they're talking about that person. That's why McLean works 3 days a week on this show. Pierre, really appreciate it, and good luck next week. Look forward to your run, because your team and its story has been one of the best in the National Hockey League this year.
Yeah, a lot of credit to our players. A lot of adversity, but they battled through it. So
enjoy it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Pierre Dorion, general manager, first-year general manager of the Ottawa Senators, and he's going to the playoffs.